Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Julia if you're new. Today I'm gonna throw together a very special dinner. We are having Armenian-style hamburgers with green beans and pilaf. My mom's side of the family is Armenian and there are very few opportunities that I get to eat Armenian food these days, both because I don't live near family and also because even when I did live near family, we just didn't cook it all that much. Armenian food tends to be ingredients that are not things that I normally keep in the house or normally grocery shop for, so it's never sort of front of mind. Over the years, I have made a handful of Armenian recipes, but yeah, it's just not something that I do often. But every once in a while, you just want that taste of home. So that's why tonight we are gonna have this delicious meal. I have a cookbook called Treasured Armenian Recipes. My mother gave me a copy of this when I moved out. And it is originally published in 1949, but this was the 31st printing in 2010. This is just like a silly little spiral bound recipe book, but I know that many Armenians living in the United States use this cookbook, and it is the one that my family uses. So I did ask my mom. We are using the recipe on page 30 for Armenian style hamburgers, but she changes it just a little bit. Just a note, I will put this recipe in the description down below if you're interested in trying it. The recipe calls for 3/4 pound of ground lamb and 1/4 pound of ground beef. My mom says she just uses a full pound of ground lamb. And then the other change we're gonna make is, it says to add 3/4 cup of tomato juice, and she says that is way too much liquid. She never makes it that way. Sometimes she just takes a little bit of tomato paste and mixes water into it and then uses that. So that is what I'm going to do because we already have a can of tomato paste open that needs to be used. Other than that, we are gonna stick to the recipe and I'll take you along. It's not even 2 o'clock in the afternoon, but I am getting started on this recipe because we are supposed to mix all the ingredients together for the meatballs and then let it chill in the fridge for a few hours. So I'm getting started on it now so that when it is dinner time, that's all ready to go. We do need to chop a couple of veggies that are gonna get mixed into these patties. So that's what I'm going to do first. I need a medium onion chopped finely, and then we'll need 2 tablespoons of green pepper also chopped finely. This pepper has seen better days, but for these purposes, we only need 2 tablespoons. That will do just fine. Like I said, growing up, I didn't eat Armenian food all that often. It wasn't something that my mom cooked very frequently, but we would celebrate a lot of holidays with relatives on my mom's side of the family. And so we would always have sort of like Armenian tinged Thanksgiving, Armenian tinged Easter. And so, you know, now that I don't live near family and celebrate a lot of holidays with them, and also pretty much that entire older generation, my grandparents' generation, is no longer around. So there's just less and less opportunity to eat those foods. I also had a great aunt who was very active in her church, which was an Armenian church. Armenian church is basically the same as Greek Orthodox, but instead of Greek, it is Armenian. Her church used to have a bazaar every year, and they also had a picnic. So those were 2 opportunities that we got to go and just eat really amazing home-cooked Armenian food. And again, I don't live around there anymore. Even if I did, my great aunt is no longer with us, and so that is not, oh my eyes. That is not something that my family really does anymore. So yeah, the opportunities to enjoy Armenian food are quite few and far between. There is an Armenian restaurant in Chicago. It is called Sayat Nova, and it is right off of the Magnificent Mile downtown. So usually whenever my parents come into town, well, before we had the baby, but when my parents would come into town, we would have a dinner out there because, again, that's not something that my parents eat all that often anymore either. So it's a great excuse to go have some really delicious food. The recipe did call for a whole medium onion, and this is honestly like a smaller than medium onion, but I think this is as much as I'm gonna put in. This is half of that smallish onion, and I'm just not interested in putting in much more onion than that. I only have a pound of meat, so I don't want it to be like 50% onion. Next, I'm gonna cut up, I don't know, a few pieces of this pepper. I need 2 tablespoons of it once it's chopped. And I think that's probably the amount that I am gonna want. This is closer to 1/4 cup instead of 1/8 cup, which is 2 tablespoons, but it's already cut, so I'm just gonna use it. Into our bowl. Next, I need 2 tablespoons of chopped parsley. I'm gonna pick the leaves mostly off the stems, but I don't care if there's some stems in here because it's just more parsley flavor. Oh, that parsley smells really good. Okay, there's our parsley. And I'm just gonna take a moment to clear my counter before I get my meat out, because I don't want my meat to sort of like contaminate these ingredients that I have not used, the leftover stuff over here. Okay, finally, before I get out my, well, I did get out my meat, but before I open up my meat, I'm gonna put some of my tomato paste in this ramekin with just a splash of water and get it just loosened up a little bit. My mom even said that sometimes she just uses like a couple squirts of ketchup, again, just to like get that tomato flavor without a whole lot of added liquid. Perfect. I'm actually gonna put on a glove to do this. I just really don't like touching raw meat. For most of my adult life, I have cooked very little meat and therefore have eaten very little meat because I don't like touching it. I don't like cooking it. I have relatively long fingernails and it just like really skeeves me out that meat like gets under my fingernails and I feel like I can't ever clean them well enough. I also have the bad habit of putting my hands in my mouth a lot and touching my face a lot, and now we have a baby and I'm just like, I don't know, it just makes me uncomfortable. So to avoid dealing with that today, I'm going to wear a glove. And of course, I'm still gonna practice safe food handling, and I'm only wearing one glove, so I will still wash this hand when all is said and done, but this is just gonna help me avoid like the meat under the fingernails feeling that drives me crazy. Okay. And now I'm just going to mix this all together. I will season with salt and pepper. I grabbed those out, but I just wanted to get things going first. If you've never had Armenian food, it is, to me, it's kind of like a cross between Greek food and Middle Eastern food, like some Mediterranean influence there. It's very similar to Turkish food. Okay, let me shake some pepper into here. This is my left hand, so a little challenging. Some salt. No idea how much salt and pepper will be good in this, because it's not like you can taste raw meat. Actually, you can. There is an Armenian dish that my mother adores, which is raw lamb, and I have absolutely no interest in it, but she loves it. And so that is one of the things that when we go to the Armenian restaurant, Sayat Nova, downtown Chicago, that is something she orders because That is not a food that you can get many places, nor is it something that you would really trust to eat at a lot of places. So she's glad for the opportunity to have it when she can. And that is the prep for our dinner all done. I'm gonna put this in the fridge, and then in like 3 or 4 hours, whenever we're ready to have dinner, I will pull this out of the refrigerator and get our patties shaped. And I will be back to show you what else we're gonna cook. We are back. It is time to get this dinner pulled together. The very first thing I'm gonna do is get my pilaf cooking. You might call this rice pilaf. In my family, we call it pilaf. This is something that I grew up eating probably at least once a week, but I also have never cooked it. My husband and I really just eat like white rice. We throw it in the pressure cooker, and that's what we do. That's also his preference. He grew up in Hawaii, and white rice was just like the thing. Pilaf is my favorite way to have rice, but it's a little more work, so I've never bothered with it. But we're gonna make it today. The first step to get this pilaf going is to melt some butter in the bottom of a small saucepan. And as that melts, I'm going to break in just a few strands of angel hair pasta. And that's, if you've ever had rice pilaf, there's usually like some either orzo or like spaghetti pieces that are darker in color. And that's exactly what this is. It's just pasta that's been browned in butter. And then you add your rice in and your broth and you get it all cooking. So I'm just gonna break this into small pieces. And it looks like I need a little bit more rice. Luckily, we always have plenty of rice on hand in this house. I don't think I have quite a cup. Nope, not quite. This is wild that just the smell of this pasta cooking in butter smells like my mom cooking. It like is bringing me back to being at home with my parents. That is my cup of rice. And while this continues to brown, I'm gonna get some broth mixed up. I have better than bouillon that is about to get cracked open, and I'm going to prepare 2 cups of better than bouillon. I'm actually realizing I think I can make this easier on myself instead of like pre-mixing this into broth. Because our water that we add into the rice is going to have to come to a boil, that's part of cooking the rice, I'm just going to put my 2 teaspoons of better than bouillon directly into the pot with the rice and the water. So that's gonna be super easy. This is the roasted chicken base flavor. It's so good. I did just make homemade chicken stock. I can link that video here in case you're interested in seeing how that went. I did that for the very first time, and I thought about using that homemade chicken stock for this, but because I've never made pilaf before, I didn't want to waste it in case it just like totally didn't turn out. So we're gonna use the bouillon today. Okay, you can see that those are getting nice and brown. We also have a dad and a baby in the other room hanging out. So what I'm gonna do is add in my cup of rice, my 2 cups of water, and then 2 teaspoons of bouillon. That's 1. Now, what I'm gonna do is turn my heat all the way up on this, stir together, and once this comes to a boil, I'm going to put my lid on it and turn the heat all the way down to a simmer. I'm gonna leave the lid on as much as I possibly can, except for opening to just stir it every once in a while and check to make sure it's not scorching on the bottom or anything like that. But that should be all we need to do. And then the rice is ready once all of the liquid is absorbed and the rice is cooked through. And hopefully the rest of this meal is gonna come together really easily. Our meat mixture has been sitting in the refrigerator all afternoon, and I am gonna use my bare hands this time, even though I didn't wanna do it last time. Ooh, that is boiling, so I'm going to get my temp turned really low and get it covered with the lid. The recipe for these hamburgers, Armenian-style hamburgers, calls for cooking them under the broiler. What I want to do is actually like pan sear them on both sides first and then put them in the oven to finish cooking. I just think A, it's gonna cut down on the cook time because the broiler is gonna take a while to get them cooked. But B, I'm hoping that it's gonna give a nice like crusty hamburger outside, getting that good like Maillard reaction going. I've never made this before, so we're learning together. We're gonna do this together for the first time. I have my frying pan right here, and I will actually grab my baking sheet out of the oven so that as these come off the frying pan, I can put them right on my baking pan. I think I'm going to aim for 8 burgers. Let's see how that works. So I will get my pan heating to about medium, and I'm gonna dive in and take about half. That's perfect, I think. I will make small patties just like this and flatten them out. All right, that's our first 4 set aside. I guess I should just shape all 8 of them. Maybe these ones I'll just put straight on my pan. Maybe I should have put some oil down on this pan, but I guess it's a little too late for that. I hope that doesn't totally ruin them. Okay, let me wash my hands. Oh, it smells like Armenian food. This is so awesome. I think I'll use a wooden spatula, and I will get my broiler on. The final piece of this meal is going to be our vegetable. We're gonna make some Armenian green beans, and luckily my mom gave me like a super easy tip for these, which is to take my bag of frozen green beans. She said you could use French cut or just like the regular chopped ones. Get those in your pot or your pan. And then she recommended I use a can of diced tomatoes that already has the seasoning included. So this is basil, garlic, and oregano. And I'm just gonna dump this whole jar in with my green beans. Stir this up, and I will pop a lid on this as well. I'm gonna check. Those are getting some good color. So I will give all of these a flip. Again, they will finish in the oven, so I'm not worried about them cooking through all the way. I just wanted to get a little bit of color on the meat before it goes into the oven. And I'll check on my pilaf. I'm gonna let this stuff keep doing its thing, and I'll check back in with you shortly. And with that, dinner is served. Hopefully everything turned out okay. I definitely think the lamb burgers are cooked all the way through, but I guess we'll find out when we cut into them. And if they're not, we'll just pop them back in the oven or pop them back on the stove. Whatever, it's gonna be fine. Okay, tell the people, how's your meal?
It's very good.
Typical Michael response.
Yeah, 10 out of 10.
I want to thank you so much for hanging out with me today, and especially for letting me share something that is like just special and full of memories for me. Armenian food is one of those things that really just feels like home, and maybe I will be inspired to try out some more recipes from our Treasured Armenian Recipes cookbook coming up in the future. Thank you again for hanging out with me today. I am so grateful that you're here. If you haven't already done so, please consider subscribing. It really does help my channel grow and reach new people. And I'm so glad that you're here. See you next time. Bye guys.